What's going on, Badger fans? Really excited about this one. It is Bama week. Let's start breaking it down with an unbelievable guest to give us a little insight on the Crimson Tide. Locked on Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. Time is one of the most valuable things any of us have, so thank you for spending a little bit of it here. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. And without further ado, man, when we get great guests on, we just jump in because we do not want to waste time. We got Daniel Petty, part of the Bama Standard Network, and a bunch of other shows on the show today. We're going to talk Bama, talk about this matchup. I want to start here, man. 2 weeks into the post-Saban era, are y'all feeling better or worse about what you've seen?
I think it depends on who you ask. If you ask the fans, Bama fans are a high standard bunch. They hard to please, but I think everybody did buy into Kalen DeBoer based off his track record and what Saban had left. And you really saw in the first two games, I do feel like he's comfortable in his own skin. I don't think he's trying to live or be in Saban's shadow. I think it's taken over, and I do think it's resonated through the players. However, I do think Alabama's still kind of looking for a little bit of their identity in some ways in this new era.
Talk to me about the identity. What should it be? Like, is there a feel for like this is what they want it to be, and is it an execution thing, or is it more they are struggling to fit the pieces into wherever they were going?
Maybe it's pieces. Maybe it's this, it's a new scheme. For 20 years, regardless of what offensive coordinator Nick Saban brought in, he had a system that was his. With the offensive line calls were the same the day one as they were the day he walked out. Coordinators now got to work within his system and call it themselves, but a lot of similarities. So you're dealing with a program that's been very much set in its ways for so many years that is taking on a Kalen DeBoer is he had a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. So it's not like it's not smash mouth football, but it is predicated a lot more on the pass. And so far, Bama, and if you watch last week in particular, Bama struggled in the pass protection and really struggled along the offensive line, which, I mean, again, you saw Penix last year just putting up great numbers, and you expect that to roll over with Milroe. And you look up at the stat sheet at the end of the night, he's 15 for 25 for 187 yards. And he was it looked to me like he didn't trust his offensive line. He was snapping the ball a lot of times, and he was on the run immediately and losing that downfield eye contact that just kind of struggled getting the passing game going.
And well, let's talk about Milroe then. I think the rep, at least talking to people, seeing a little bit of what we've seen, it's super athletic kid, obviously. Reading the field at times, a little bit inconsistent. Have you seen growth there, or is it kind of the same scouting report?
That's the question. So in the first game, they held him. I mean, it was a blowout, but they kept him in the third quarter because Bama was just kind of running it down their throat, gashing them, and they didn't even get a chance for him to throw that intermediate pass or read the defense, which is very much what Nick Sheridan and Kalen DeBoer's offense is predicated on. And that's what a lot of people were hoping. Okay, we got this great athletic quarterback. They didn't like the offensive coordinators and Bill O'Brien and Reese before because they didn't feel like they believed in Milroe. So now you got a coach that does believe in him. This is his chance to take that next step. And as great of an athlete as he is and as many yards as he put up on the deep ball, that was the question which you brought up. Can he make the reads? Can he make the intermediate throws that are required to make a Kalen DeBoer's offense really successful? And to this point, we're 2 games in and haven't got a chance to see it. In the first game, we didn't get to because Bama's defense was gashing them. In the second game, they didn't get to see it because Jalen honestly was running for his life. And until they kind of made a substitution on the offensive line with a young kid who was making a second start in Wilkin Formby, and they ended up bringing in Elijah Pritchett, the run game kind of started going. But heck, it was 14-13 with 10 minutes to go. And it wasn't until then that the run game really took off.
Let's talk offensive line then, considering that was a bit of an issue against South Florida. I think a lot of Badger fans were tuning into that game out of curiosity. The Badger game had ended. We knew Bama was the next week. Is the offensive line, I know there were some health concerns. Is that a concern long-term, or was that a early season? We don't think it's going to be this bad.
Well, we don't know. I mean, Proctor didn't play Saturday. It kind of became a revolving door with Formby and then Pritchett coming in. So, I mean, they have the interior with Brailsford and Proctor and those guys and Booker's pretty set. So, I think they felt comfortable about it, but you have one injury and then one of the positions again has got a new guy starting, and all of a sudden, you got two big holes on it, and you've got a problem.
All right, let's shift running game, because if you talk to Badger fans, and I'll tell you this, the Badgers rush defense is like numero uno, top of concerns for Wisconsin fans. Through 2 weeks, they haven't looked as stout as they should against South Dakota, against Western Michigan. Bama's got two really good running backs. You watch them on film, powerful, low center of gravity, north-south guys. Milroe can run. Will Bama just commit to running the ball down the throat if that's working?
I feel like they will. And they did in the first game. And again, those two teams aren't Wisconsin. I expect a lot more formidable opponent with Wisconsin. And I know, and I even read your clip, the South Dakota game, that they kind of struggled on the perimeter. And I mean, Bama does have a lot of speed. And I mean, with Jam Miller and Justice Haynes and Milroe gets to the outside, he's heck on wheels. The kid can run. So I feel like if the zone read game is working, they can lean heavily on it. And that's when you would hope, if you're a Bama fan or a coach, that's when it would start opening up stuff in the passing game and give Milroe a little bit more confidence and time to start looking downfield, because, again, through 2 games, we haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So
oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
No. So, yeah, I would, to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked to see them lean very run heavy this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an issue for the Badgers, which I think Wisconsin will counter with putting some more people in the box. Wisconsin's secondary is the strength of the defense. It's veteran. Ricardo Holman's a really good corner. Hunter Woller's a great safety. If the Badgers do go that route, which I think they might have to stop Bama's running game, talk to me about Bama's receivers. Obviously, Ryan Williams has generated a lot of buzz, the freshman, big play guy. How deep is this group? How good is this group?
That's the thing. Talent-wise, it's super deep, but we haven't got to see it so far. I mean, we heard Kendrick Law, number one, was going to kind of be in a Deebo Samuels package because of his versatility. And we've seen him, I think, take one run on a sweep. He may have had one Saturday that I missed. And then you bring up Ryan Williams. He's obviously the rock star of the class. He's 17 years old, should be going into a senior year. And he was like the youngest, I think, SEC player of the week and offensive SEC player of the week in history. He's a superstar. He's got speed to burn, and but there's other guys. Prentice, I brought up Law, Jeremy Brailsford, the transfer from Washington, really looked good in A-Day. I thought he was going to kind of take over that slot role. Bernard is the name I was looking for. So there's guys, Emmanuel Henderson, they really love. He's got great hands. There's a young kid that came in with Ryan Williams and Caleb Odom that has an NFL body right now. It's just we haven't seen again, threw for 185 yards. The only one we've really seen is Ryan Williams kind of do it, and we were expecting kind of the ball to get. I mean, again, Kalen DeBoer's offense, you look out at Washington, he's got 1,000-yard receiver and then a couple 700-yard receivers. I mean, the ball gets spread around to a bunch of guys, and that was a little bit of the expectation. So the talent is there, but we haven't seen it parlay on the field yet.
Who's the best player on Bama's offense that doesn't get talked about?
Best player, I'm going to go right now with probably Jam Miller. He's kind of, it's in a stable of backs. Bama was always kind of known in the Saban era for having 2 or 3 backs, but that fell off the last few years, and they've kind of gone offensive. You know about the receivers and J-Mo and all the Jaron Judy and all the different guys that have gone pro recently. But I would probably say Jam Miller. He was the spark Saturday when the game was kind of dragging. Bama was in a dogfight with USF in the fourth quarter, and Miller kind of gave a spark. Again, Pritchett came in, got the offensive line going, but Miller started kind of breaking off some big runs and popping, and he broke, I think, long 40, 50-yard touchdown run at the end. But he would be, I think, the one that doesn't get talked about enough. About Milroe, about some of the receivers, about Ryan Williams, but I think Jam Miller is probably the next really star back for Alabama.
We're going to get back to this conversation in 1 second, but first, a quick break for our good friends of the show over at Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Listen, can you imagine taking the reins of a program? Over at Ultimate College Football Head Coach, you can do just that. My favorite thing about it is I played it because I'm a football nerd. I love doing this kind of stuff. We have a fantasy league and something else, a fantasy league here. With this, you can set your strategy. It's a completely 100% free app where you get to be the head coach of a program. It's ad-free. You can download it, play it offline. It is phenomenal. And again, set the strategy however you want to do it. No ads, 100% playable offline. Be the head coach of your program. Play on the go. Play as much as you want when you want to. And of course, over at Locked On Badgers, we have a great offer for you. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure you take advantage of this perk because it'll really help supercharge you. That's Locked On CFB, all caps, in the App Store. Download the game, visit Ultimate College, ultimatetechcfb.com, or look it up on the app stores. That's Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, let's get back into the show. Yeah, I watched some of his film actually today, getting ready for this week. Really impressive. Physical player, can catch the ball too. So if you start sneaking those linebackers up, they can loop them out on wheel routes. Impressive player for sure.
That's a funny. I kind of expected more out of the screen game, and I think we've seen it once. And again, I don't know if Alabama's trying to stay vanilla because you've got Wisconsin on the schedule, followed by Georgia, and maybe trying to get out of that USF game, thinking you can kind of run. But again, you never saw an offense take hold really until late in the fourth quarter with a run game because of the offensive line woes.
I think we kind of talked about the script where if this works really well for Bama, they're running the ball, they're moving the ball, they're patient, they're creating some advantageous spots for the receivers. If the offense doesn't click this weekend in Camp Randall for Alabama, why do you think that is? What happens?
The offensive line has the same game it did last week. It's just a repeat performance, and it's a different environment. You're not at home this week. It's 14-13 with 10 minutes to go in Bryant-Denny, and you've got the home crowd at your back, so that pressure's not there. It's 14-13 in Camp Randall, and fourth quarter kicks in, and Cypress Hill starts bumping, and everybody's thinking, holy crap, we got Alabama on the ropes. It's going to be I think there's going to be a little, the blood in the air at that point. It could be, that's where it goes off the rails as the offensive line crumbles in a loud environment, and you start getting the counts start getting off, and the quarterback can't hear, and that's where it could go off real quick.
Any concern, and I want to get to defense next, any concern, first road game Bama, first road game DeBoer era, do the Badgers maybe have an advantage there? Or, I mean, this is certainly a team that has veterans in certain spots. It's not like Milroe hasn't played on the road before.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that you can say playing in the SEC and a veteran in the SEC. Milroe's played in the big venues at Texas A&M, at LSU, in Gainesville, or at Georgia, wherever Auburn, where it gets crazy loud. So, I mean, they're used to the venues, but this is the first time this year. And again, it's in a weird spot for Bama. You got Georgia coming in next week. If you go in undefeated, you're looking at game day coming, top 5 matchup, a game that's in the last 5-6 years been the biggest game in the SEC and pretty much determines who's going to win the SEC. So how much is that playing on Bama's mind when you're about to go on a road and noon or 11 o'clock Central is upset city, and you're I don't think the environment, they've done it before, but this is the first time this year, and it's a weird spot. I think it could very much play into this game and there are some new guys that you're trying to get. Again, I hate to keep harping on it, but when your struggle was with the offensive line and so much is predicated on being able to communicate and get your reads and get your calls, an atmosphere like that could bucket.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because Badger fans have kind of, I think at times maybe tried a little too hard, but we've kind of lined up the dots for the upset, right? It's DeBoer's first year, it's post-Sib, and it's their first road game. Maybe they're looking ahead to Georgia, right? Which of those is the most likely thing that the thing Bama fans are maybe most worried about? Is there a chance that Alabama's looking ahead to Georgia and maybe overlooks Wisconsin just a little bit with an early kickoff?
I do believe that's a fear. Absolutely. I mean, I think all of the above, man. I think it's all. I think Bama fans they're very football savvy. They don't look at a scoreboard and see 42-16 and are happy with it. They saw that it was 14-13 with 10 minutes to go, and there were some severe problems. And just not that, man. And if Byron Brown, the quarterback at USF, is accurate at all, that game's really scary for Alabama because they had some receivers running around in the secondary. That's the other thing Bama fans do. I mean, so that game put a lot, fans weren't walking out happy. They were walking out very concerned with some of the things that they saw on that field. So again, hey, we weren't a polished team last week. We didn't play up to the Bama standard. And now we've got Georgia coming in, and we're about to go into this hornet's nest up in Madison, Wisconsin at noon. So yeah, I think all that is becoming a real fear for Alabama, even though you look at the line in Vegas and it's 15.5. I don't think any Bama fan feels like it's a 15.5-point spread right now.
Let's flip it to the defensive side for Bama. But before we go there, you have kind of an interesting backstory, having an Ole Miss background where Phil Longo, Wisconsin's offensive coordinator, was an offensive coordinator. Thoughts on Phil Longo, who through one season and 2 games in Madison, we haven't seen the offense we saw at Ole Miss and North Carolina.
No, and I don't know if that's because it's a change in college football. Phil Longo, again, when he was at Ole Miss, and I don't know how much it's evolved since then at his time in North Carolina, his offense is a very different from most spread, throw it around. Most of those are on a very strict wide receiver tree. Quarterbacks are throwing the spots, very timing. Phil Longo's offense is where wide receivers find open space and get to it. And the quarterback's job is to read the open zones and then kind of just have a communication with the receiver that they know where the open spots are and they find those soft zones. And if you don't have close relationships where these, this is the portal era where you got quarterbacks coming in every year. They're not getting there their freshman year and throwing with these receivers for 2 or 3 years before they step on the field. So they don't have that connection. And that's very much what this offense is predicated on, a quarterback that is very comfortable with his receivers. He knows what they're going to do. They know where the open zones are on the field, and they've done it. So, it takes a lot of practice. And that's where I kind of flip. And I know Bama fans are nervous, but you look at Wisconsin right now, and it seems like there's a little bit of an identity crisis on offense with a program that has been a traditional power, one of the best running programs in college football history back from the days of Ron Dane through Melvin Gordon. And now you've got this completely change, and you bring in a new quarterback, and it sounded like to me they just kind of abandoned the pass last week. And that's where you can get in some trouble with Alabama. If you don't have the ability to stretch the field and pass it, they're going to load up on that run game. And they've got some guys up front that are, SEC fit, the big, fast, physical SEC dudes.
Yeah, we're trying to find a couple of those guys. Like if you guys have a couple extra in the 2 deep,
hey, man, that's how the portal works these days. There's not depth. And I think that's why teams like Alabama, who were able to stack up, and Ohio State 2 and 3 deep, that's where they just mauled teams in the past, because their 2 guys could kind of start for you. Well, now their 2 guys are going to play for you. And so I'm going to just be on the lookout, get that NIL, get those NIL funds going. Quit drinking so much beer and put it to the NIL.
Well, no, we have a beer now that contributes to the NIL. So for
which
Wisconsin, Potosi Brewing does varsity ale. And so, yeah, nice. If you want to find a way for Wisconsinites to leverage NIL, you have them drink beer.
That's beer, right?
It's about as simple as it gets.
Beer and football better.
Let's do it. Let's talk about that defense then. You mentioned it. Definitely some dudes up front. What does the defense look like through 2 games? Has it met expectations? Any surprises?
So far, and again, it hadn't really been tested. Now, one of the problems is getting off the field on 3rd down. There's been some prolonged drives where, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, they'll get on the perimeter and make the play, but it's been a bend, don't break. There is a lot of talent. I think Jahad Campbell is one of the best linebackers in college football. I think Quay Russaw, another linebacker, and I know Deontay Lawson kind of gets the pub number 0, but I think Jahad Campbell and Quay Russaw are the best 2 linebackers on the team. And they got to transfer LT Overton from Texas A&M, and he is absolutely wreaking havoc in the backfield. And so it is a nasty front 7 that it will absolutely get after you. It's actually a little more Kane Womack is the defensive coordinator. He was the head coach at South Alabama, and he kind of comes from a great defensive lineage coaching tree that not many people know about, that's produced Tom Allen, who's now at Penn State. But he runs a 4-2-5, but it's much more of an aggressive defense. And so far it's looked good. But like I said, I did mention the secondary hasn't really been tested. They got transferred to Monty Jackson from USC. His name hadn't been really called, which is good for a transfer. Maybe a guy that your fans are more familiar with, Keon Sabb, who's a transfer from Michigan, who had 2 picks in the first game. But it's really based off Malachi Moore, who's been the veteran in the secondary. So again, secondary hadn't been completely tested. And again, don't know that they had some shots that could have been hit on them last week, but maybe it's the defensive pressure that didn't make those happen. So I got to give the front 7 a little bit of credit there. But so far the returns on the defense have been, get off the field a little better on third down, but they've been, you can't complain too much on the defensive side.
Third and long for the Badgers. How's Bama scheming up pressure? Do they want to send 4 and just believe our 4 is better than your 5 and we're going to win? Or is it going to be some more exotic blitz packages or a little TBD?
It's going to be a mixed bag. He's going to run multiple. He'll to this point, I've seen him do a little bit of both. So I know they like, now I say that Saturday night late in the second half when it was getting the third mediums, third and long, the pressure was getting dialed up trying to get to the kid because he was struggling to complete passes, and they knew they could kind of go into a man and get after it.
We're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show over at 5 Hour Energy. Man, listen, some days you just need a little bit of a pick-me-up after lunch, right? Like you've been knocking stuff out. You have a bunch of stuff on the task list, the honey-do list, the sports list, and the I just want to do this list. It can be a lot, yo. Like I'm right there with you. You and I, listener, let me get deep with you right now. I'm there too sometimes, right? Let's do this together like Legos. We got to stick together. And that's why I'm going to recommend 5 Hour Energy. It's a great pick-me-up after lunch, small, portable, sugar-free, because we already get enough of that sugary stuff in other places. We don't need that in our energy. So this is a great way to do it. Get a little more done with your to-do list. I can't give you more days, but I can give you a little bit more energy to get done in the days what you want to get done. Go over to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5 Hour Energy products today. You can build a 12-pack or a 24-pack. Tropical Burst, grape, berry. I like the watermelon, but you can build your own pack of what you like the most. You can't use the code LOCKEDONCFB with any other promos or with subscriptions, but you get 20% off your order with Locked On CFB. So go over to 5hourenergy.com, get 20% off your order with Locked On CFB. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, let's get back into the same thing with the offensive question, moving to defense. You hit on a bunch of the names I think Badger fans who have really dug into this know. Who's the best player or the best piece on defense that doesn't get talked about?
Oh, Jahai Campbell. Because again, I think Deontay Lawson kind of gets the bub. Jahai Campbell is he's a stud. That dude's an animal.
Let's talk special teams, because you and I both know tight games, special teams can often make the difference. Kicking, punting, return games. How strong is the Bama special teams group?
Well, I mean, they lost a great kicker, and then they get and I have to look up his name and get me on kickers. It's Nicholson. That's right. The kid, the Miami of Ohio. They went and got the Luke Rosa. The Miami of Ohio coach was kind of pissed about it because they asked him. They said, "We heard you lost your kicker." He said, "No, we didn't lose him. We know where he is. He's not missing.
Oh.
It wasn't a loss. A bigger team." And look, and to his credit, I don't think he was taking the shot people thought he was. A bigger team came and got him, but the way the question was asked was, "Did you lose the guy?" Well, no, we didn't lose him. So I mean, you've got a Groza kicker, and of course an Australian punter. Everybody's got an Australian. They've got a punter factory in Australia that just sends them all to America. And it's kind of been, I think, right now the kick returner punt returners kind of been an issue for Bama the past couple of years because they've usually had a game breaker. They didn't. Kool-Aid was a great cornerback. Kool-Aid McKinstry, he went in the first round, but not many people really liked his punt return. He just drove people crazy. But they've got a young kid in Bakwe who's a 5-star DB that is kind of electric out of Alabama. That's been handling the punt return duties, and I think he kind of had a long one Saturday night. Again, I was at the game, had a lot of crazy crap going on his story. Watched that one, but I think he had a pretty good one. So that's kind of where they're at with that. They do have they've got a place kicker that can make the field goal if he needs to, and an Australian punter that does what they do.
Yeah, they all do it. Yeah. Talk to me through. I think the game script for Alabama could go a couple different ways. If Alabama comes in and wins convincingly, if it's a closer game or Wisconsin pulls the upset, what's the game script and how do you see that playing out?
All right, the game script, I'll go both ways. I'll give you the game script for a Bama win is they do rely heavy on the run. They get it going and keep Wisconsin on their heels on the perimeter, and you end up having a day where Milroe rushes for 60, 70 yards, and Jam Miller has 100, and Justice Haynes, who's also they expect Haynes to kind of be a two-headed monster with Jam Miller. Actually, they were fighting for who's the actual starter. I think Justice Haynes did start the other night. That you get running downhill, you suffocate Wisconsin's passing game to the point where the run's coming and you can load the box, and it just kind of stifles the offense to a point where Bama just grinds you to death, and it ends up one of those games. You feel like you're staying in it but at the end of the day, it ends up being a 31-10 game that you just grind it out. On the flip side, Bama comes up there. You've got Georgia next week. All the intangibles we talked about. First road game, noon, early. You got Camp Randall rocking, and the offensive line struggles. And you know, you give a home team momentum. I don't care what issues they may have had before, but you give a home team, when you're playing a team like Alabama coming into your house, it does elevate your game. You're not going to play the same game against South Dakota that you're going to run out on the field for Alabama. So I would say this to your fans, for the ones that were kind of, you know, gnawing at the teeth because of, you know, only winning 27-14 or whatever it was last week, you're probably going to get a little bit of a different effort out of your guys this week based off the team across. And that's the keys to an upset, where your defensive line just really starts to disrupting Bama's offense. You get Milroe out of his game, get him behind the line, get him behind the numbers, and find ways to score. You know, maybe get a turnover, maybe a punt return, or maybe get the, you know, maybe this is Van Dyke's time to, maybe Longo and Van Dyke's offense have been waiting for this moment and they bust out. I don't know. So that would be the other side of it for Wisconsin, I believe.
Yeah, nothing would make Badger fans happier than that. A couple more quick questions. We'll get you out of here.
Okay.
The first one is, it looks like, and I didn't watch the entirety of the game. I heard some comments from Bama fans about not loving the reffing, but ultimately this is a Bama team that has 20 penalties through 2 games, -1 on turnover margin. I think that's part of the script. I think Wisconsin has to win the turnover battle, but it looks like Bama hasn't generated as many turnovers as you would expect through 2 games, and the penalties have been a little not typical for a Bama team.
No, they came out of the gate hot. Keon Sabb had like 2 picks in the first, like, I think in a 5-minute span, it almost seemed like, in the first game. But since then, no, it hasn't been a lot of turnovers, and the penalties have got, like, I think in the first game, in the first 5 minutes, they had 6 penalties or something crazy. And then again, we'll go all the way back to the offensive line. You had one guy that got called for 4 holdings in the game and had 4 pressures. I mean, the holdings were just, I think there was 2 or 3 big pop plays where Milroe ran a 60-yard touchdown. I think he threw a 50-yard bomb. Both of them got called back for holdings. That were, I mean, it's just, that is, and that's something that you didn't see. Is that's the Saban was pretty harsh on that kind of stuff. But I mean, I don't know if that's a new mix or not. But that is absolutely something Bama's got to clean up, is the penalty yardage. It has been a Achilles heel so far this season.
Last question here. This is a huge game for Badger fans. They've circled it for a while. They've been looking forward to it. How is this for Bama fans? Like, how big of a game is this for Bama fans?
Bama fans are football purists. They love, as much as they look, Bama fans love to let you know that we are Alabama, man. This is football. We've done it. We're the Yankees of football. But they also love football. Like, when we went out to Oklahoma when I was in college in 2000, it was not a big grudge. But, you know, they were still kings. It was more like this mutual respect of 2 big programs meeting. And Alabama fans really respect the traditions of the game. And that's something that I think you'll see from them. We went up to Penn State a few years ago, just kind of in awe of it all, because we respect that kind of stuff. I think they're excited. I think they're excited because we've never been to Madison. We've never been to Camp Randall. We've never got to do, I swear, if I'm up there, I don't give a shit if I'm wearing crimson or not. I'm sorry if I can't say that.
No, you're good.
But when Cypress Hill starts, I'm jumping. I want to do it with you guys. So I think there's a little bit of excitement to go play this game, because the last time we played you guys, I think, was in a neutral site in Dallas. That sucks, man. Is how much cooler would it have been for you guys to get to come to Tuscaloosa and experience that and all the traditions of Alabama? I think that's the beauty of college football, and especially games like this that you don't see very often. So Alabama fans, travel. This is one I absolutely expect you to see a good Bama crowd, because they're excited to come up and see Madison.
House of Pain, by the way, the third quarter, yeah.
House of Pain. I keep saying Cypress Hill, don't I?
Okay. You know the tradition.
Look, no. I should have just named the damn Jump Around. I know the song. It's Jump Around.
You know the tradition.
Idiot.
It's all good. Daniel Petty, obviously, great insight. Thank you so much. Where can people find everything you're doing that want to kind of tune into this week?
If you want to tune in this week, check us out at the Bama Standard Network on YouTube. Subscribe, and all of our shows pop up. Now, I'll be honest, most of our shows are obviously Bama heavy. We're going to break down. But, hey, this week will be a good one for you, because most of our shows are going to be breaking down the Wisconsin game and our thoughts on that. You'll get the Bama heavy. But on the flip side, I have a show on Monday and Friday at 7s. It's more college football overarching, except for tonight. We're going to have you on, and it's going to be Bama, Wisconsin. But check us out there, man. Like I said, just subscribe to the Bama Network. We run shows almost every day that talk Alabama football and college football. Like I said, I'm the guy that does the national, but the rest of it's all. I don't know if you've seen Roll Tide Willie, but down in Tuscaloosa, they don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide. So we give you a lot of that. But again, if you just love college football, I'm sorry, I didn't go a little further. We've got tons of former Bama players like George Teague, who played for the Dallas Cowboys and had a heck of a career. He has a show on our network. It's just tons of former players that play with Alabama that give great insights. We always have former Bama player guests that have won championships, and just you get a lot of really cool stories if that's your thing.
That's absolutely awesome. Definitely go check him out. Again, it's Bama week. We're excited for it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with some more content on Wisconsin, and we will talk later.